guys, and welcome back to the Crawl Room. We're here once again in this wonderful ranty room for all things Formula 1 and Mugello this weekend, of course. And what can be said? It was its first time ever hosting a Formula 1 race and possibly the last, but by God was it exciting. We had a bit of action at the start, and then we had a bit more action at the start, and then we had 2 red flags, and then we had several safety cars and God knows what else, pandemonium and chaos, and yeah, 2 full restarts, unbelievable stuff. So really hope Mugello comes back. Obviously it was very much circumstances with some of the incidents, but overall, not a bad track. A lot of people said it'd be boring, not much overtaking. Well, it certainly delivered, I think. Yes, there were some dull patches, and had it not been for the restarts and stuff, we wouldn't have had as much drama. But overall, I was very impressed, and I was very happy with how the racing went. So as always, if you've never seen this series before, I'm going to score the drivers out of a possible maximum 10 points, and the lowest of 0 if you do really badly. But I do award bonus points, and I do award minus points. If you've done really well, I can give you a couple of extra points. If you do really badly, I can knock a few off your score. So, as always, we're going to kick things off with the race winner. It is Lewis Hamilton, of course, once again. Obviously. And what can be said for Lewis? It was an okay race weekend by him. He got pole, but I think Bottas was faster, but unfortunately Esteban Ocon went off on his flying lap and Bottas had to back off. It was purple sector 1 and then that was it. Lap was gone. So Bottas looked the quickest, but circumstances as always play into Hamilton's hands because that's just the luck he has. Not only has he got the best car, but he gets the luck as well, just to make sure he gets another pole position to that tally that is ever growing. And yeah, in the race, he didn't have the measure of Bottas at the start. Bottas pulled ahead. Even Verstappen looked like he was going to get Hamilton at the start before Verstappen ultimately broke down. And then, yeah, in the race, then it came to the second restart, and that's where he got him, and then that's where he stayed ahead. He just made a move around the outside, and I was like, oh, this is just a bit too easy again, Mercedes. It's just a bit too easy. Yeah, if I were Bottas, I'd be fighting it a bit more, to be honest with you, but there you go. That's why I've lost all respect for Bottas. But for Lewis Hamilton, really, this weekend, it was an okay race. Didn't look to have the measure of Bottas throughout the weekend, but ultimately took the pole and took the win. But wasn't anything special by him in a special vehicle, which is the ultimate beast. So for that reason, I'm going to award him just 7 points. And yeah, it was an okay weekend, but yeah, not too bothered. And then, as mentioned, we come to Hamilton's teammate, Valtteri Bottas. Pretty much an easy 1-2 for them this weekend. Although Bottas did like to try and make it a bit more difficult for himself on the second restart when Ricciardo got ahead of him. Yeah, for Bottas, like I said, I think he had the measure of his teammate this weekend, but just didn't do it. Just didn't do it once again. Pole was unlucky. He was unlucky not to get pole. He made up for that in the start of the race by taking the lead before we had the safety car, then the red flag. Then when we restarted, he lost it. And then that was it. It was second then. He was just like, oh, fuck's sake, Valtteri. Fucking hell. And then like, oh yeah, I'd like to go for fastest lap. And then, oh, I'd like to go on opposite or whatever Hamilton does. And then they put him on the same tyres anyway. I'm just like, Valtteri, just stop being a bitch. Do you know what it needs? Do you know what it takes? And my mate Matt pointed this out to me. I'm like, do you know what? You're right. Bottas is 65 points behind in the championship or whatever. Just next race, just take him out. Just full on. Just go straight in and just batter him out at turn 1. Take him off. It doesn't matter if you're out as well, but just take him off. Just show that you're not pussying about anymore. But unfortunately, that's what Valtteri is paid to do. He is paid to take the rolling pin. Ooh. So, for that reason, Valtteri Bottas, a middle of the road 5 this weekend. Yeah, I've scored him. He's knocking that off his minus 6,000 that I gave him the other weekend. So he's undisqualified. I'll give him 5 points. Enjoy yourself. And then we come to Alexander Albon, and normally I would be jumping up and down at this point. His first ever podium, the first ever podium for a tyre driver as well, and Red Bull should be ecstatic because obviously Verstappen did nothing this weekend. Not all his fault, to be honest with you. And then Albon delivered a podium still, but friggin' hell, he made it hard work, didn't he? He made it hard work. At the start, the first start, he didn't slip back. He sort of stayed around 4th, didn't he? Leclerc got both of the Red Bulls, so Leclerc was up to 3rd, and then it was the safety car, the red flag, and the second restart then where he lost it all and he tumbled down that frigging order again. You're like, what you doing down in 8th, Alex? What are you doing down there? And then the second restart, then he clawed his way back up after the pit stops during the race and whatever else kicked off, and then he ended up being 4th, 5th even at one stage, and then just picked his way off and eventually got past Ricciardo for that final podium spot. And yeah, it was earned, and it was long overdue, but he made that such hard work. Qualifying 4th as well this weekend, let's not forget. So we just thought, brilliant. 1, 2, 3, Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen in that order, Albon 4th. It was a clear 4th as well, a good few tenths ahead of that racing point behind. So you thought, brill, that's it. It's going to be 4th, solid weekend. Verstappen retired, you thought, okay, Leclerc's got him off the line, but that's fine. He'll just nip past a really slow Ferrari, and that'll be the end of it. But then he bogged down on that second restart, and it just, yeah. So overall, I'm really thrilled. I am happy for him, but Christ, he made that hard work. So for that reason, I'm going to award him 8 points this weekend. It was a solid weekend. I'm proud he got his first podium, but God, don't make it hard work like that again, Alex. You've got one now. You broke the camel's back. Go for it. Just go for it every race now. You don't need to fall back down the order all the time. So 8 points, good effort, not perfect. And then we come to Daniel Ricciardo. Cyril Abiteboul was getting his shaving foam ready to get ready for a tattoo wherever. He said if Ricciardo got a podium this season, he would have a tattoo on his body. And it looked like it was so close to happening, wasn't it? I think had it not been for that second restart, I think Ricciardo had the measure of everyone. He's even faster than the racing points, which was impressive to see. He was doing a solid job this weekend, was Ricciardo. Yeah, he qualified well, and then in the race just picked him off one by one and kept out of trouble. And there he was. It was up there all race. I don't think he slipped lower than 5th at any point during that race. So, yeah, obviously maybe apart from pit stops, of course. But, yeah, it was a fantastic weekend by him. A fantastic weekend. But because he didn't quite get that podium and I really wanted him to do it, I am just going to award him 9 points this weekend. Almost perfect. Almost perfect. If he'd got 3rd, I'd have probably given him 15 points, to be honest with you, but it wasn't to be. So, 9 points for Daniel Ricciardo. Really happy, really pleased. Yeah, he's found form. The Renault's found form. We're just that far away now. Next up is Sergio Perez, and after initially qualifying ahead of his teammate, had a solid one-place grid penalty to put him behind Stroll, just. So the racing points lined up in the same order. In the race, he did not have the measure of Stroll at all, did he, this weekend? He was sort of mixing around the 8th, 10 area, then we had a bit of chaos and a bit of drama, and then he was mixing it around. And basically, he was just picking off from other people's misfortunes at one stage, before, in the final restart, eventually getting his shit together and getting up there into a solid 5th place finish. Yeah, a good weekend, but nothing special. I think Stroll were doing a better job this weekend. He was certainly doing a lot more impressive driving, but Stroll had the misfortune of... but at least Perez was there to make up and salvage some points, so well done in that respect. But for Perez, it was only just better than average compared to what Stroll was doing in the race. So for that reason, I'm only awarding Perez 6 points this weekend. Of course, this is the whole weekend we found out the drama about, he's not being kept on anymore. It's Vettel in his seat, and, well, he's not announced Vettel's in the seat. I don't know, yeah. Whatever. I can't remember what's happening in the news. I don't care. I've been away this weekend, and I've not really been paying attention. But something or other's happened, and Perez isn't there anymore. So there we go. Yeah, he's probably a bit dejected with that, and probably struggling to find a Formula 1 seat. But, yeah, 6 points. And then we come to Lando Norris. And what can we say about him? It was very quiet this weekend. That's what we can say about him. We hardly saw anything of the sole McLaren this race. Yeah, just a quiet one. Just a quiet one. He picked off 6th place in the end, which is a great effort, and didn't initially look to have the pace. First time in 15 races out and not making it into the Q3 session. Lining up P11, so I had a choice of tyres there. And overall in the race, just kept out of trouble. It's all I can say, because he wasn't really doing anything special. He really was just benefiting from the misfortunes. So yeah, for Lando Norris, I'm just going to award him 7 points this weekend. Maybe a tad harsh, maybe he did deserve a little bit more. But overall, an okay race weekend, but just a quiet one. And I couldn't really analyse if he could have maximised anything more from it. But yeah, 7 points I think is fair. And then we come to Daniil Kvyat, another quiet racer this weekend. He certainly got the measure of his teammate in the qualifying, and then in the race, Gasly couldn't show what he was capable of doing, getting himself into difficulty at the start, and ultimately retiring with contact. And as for Kvyat, 7th place, of course. And again, another quiet one. He did deserve points this weekend. 7th place is fair. Yeah, difficult one to judge once again, same as Norris. So for that reason, I'm going to award Daniil Kvyat the same as what I've awarded Norris, which is 7 points. Again, might be a tad harsh, but I think it's fair. It was going to get points this weekend anyway, but I think 7th is just stretching it a bit too much for what it was capable of getting. Had there been more cars in the race, maybe it'd have been down P10, P9, where the AlphaTauri usually is. So yeah, 7 points for Daniil Kvyat. And then we come to Sha-la-la. And didn't David Croft say that quite a few times in one sentence? It was something like oh God, just end it now, David. Just end it now. Oh, it were going through me. It were going through me. It were like someone dragging the fingers down a chalkboard. He said it 3 times in one sentence, like, frig me, David. Shut up. Get off and get Alex Jakes commentated on it. My God, the F2 and F3 commentator is phenomenal in comparison to that bell sprout. So yeah, that annoyed me. Anyway, Charles Leclerc's race. Sorry, I've gone off on a tangent. Not like me. Yeah, it was initially a good start. Don't get me wrong, and it was up there as P3. Then tumbled down the order. Once one went through, it was very much reminiscent of Raikkonen last weekend at Monza. Once one got him, boo, 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 falling down the order, dropping like a stone every lap. And an unfortunate way for him just to end up in P8. He did cross the line P9, of course, but of course we'll come to that in a short while. But P8 overall, yeah, okay. And I'm going to award him 7 points. I know it's the car, and I know he did a really good job, but I'm just a bit miffed with Ferrari, and I can't really take it out as a punishment on Ferrari on a weekly basis. I only ever do it once every 3 races. So that one's coming up, and I'll probably whinge at him again, but I just fancied a bit of a moan. So I think Leclerc was good enough for 9 points this weekend, realistically given the car, but I'm scoring him 7. Because he needs to change his name, or he needs to go and tell David Croft, actually, that it's not Charles, it's Charles Leclerc. Okay, get that sorted, David. Go to Charles, if you watch him, go tell David Croft it's Charles Leclerc, or just tell him not to say it as stupidly as what he does. I can live with that, and then you can win the crawl room. That's an ultimatum for you there. Then we come to Kimi Raikkonen, my man of the weekend once again. The Finnish magnificent driver that is Kimi Raikkonen, crossing the line P8, finishing P9 after a 5-second time penalty. For what? For what? Well, I'll tell you for what, Kimi. It was because you went over the white lines, crossing into the pit lane entry, which Hamilton has done previously, but they eventually penalised him once at Hockenheim 2019 when it didn't matter. So we've got to penalise you now. But anyway, we'll skip over that bit. So yeah, had it not been for that, it would have been P8 on the road. And it was so refreshing to see him get points, and I thought it's not going to happen this year. It really isn't. A high rate of attrition, and he was still outside the points. And then he had the 5-second time penalty. I was like, well, that's it. He's not going to finish in the top 10 now. I thought even with Grosjean hobbled, Russell's still going to have the measure and just scrape in, and it's going to be a P11 for Raikkonen, and it wasn't. It was P9. I was so elated when I saw him tumble down one. I was like, oh, is he going to get behind Vettel? No, Vettel stays behind. Fantastic. So yeah, really pleased for Kimi Raikkonen. And it's 10 points. It's 10 points. His banter on the radio is fantastic. I'm going to miss that when that's gone. Whether he retires at the end of this season or not, which I think he will, I'm going to miss that for definite. And the fact that he could drive that tub of shit round and managed to gain 5 seconds on an actual Ferrari, and also the Williams with the Mercedes engine in the back of it. Impressive stuff. I'm really happy for Raikkonen. And yeah, you're going to get 10 points. Well done, Kimi. Well done. And then we come to Sebastian Vettel, and after being out-qualified by Charles Leclerc, unfortunately, again, he's just second best, isn't he? He's just the second best Ferrari. Couldn't get within 5 seconds of Alfa Romeo ahead with a time penalty, and was racing round at the back, fair enough. And he only picked up 1 point today because of the high rate of attrition. Who would have said that on Ferrari 12 months ago? Oh yeah, well, if loads of cars retire, Ferrari might just scrape a point. That's crazy to think, isn't it? But here we are in this situation. And yeah, Sebastian Vettel, short and sweet, it's going to be 4 points. It was an okay race weekend, nothing special, and yeah, just average really, once again. I'm getting a bit bored of talking about him now, a bit like Bottas, to be honest. But, you know, maybe some more fire in his belly now if he's going to Daddy Aston Martin Racing point. Yeah, maybe that'll rejuvenate him for 2021, but 4 points for now. And then we come to the car that finished outside the points, just in P11, and it was George Russell, after looking like he was going to be on the points right up until that second restart, where he didn't launch off the line and we fell down to the 12th position, which was last of the runners. And he only got Grosjean because he was heavily damaged. Now, I really like George, and, you know, I was jumping up and down when I saw the fact that he was in the points, and I was like, come on, he's 8th here. You know, he could get some solid points. And then when it just all went wrong again, I was like, oh, George, you're like the Hulkenberg of Formula 1 now. Hulkenberg never got a podium. You don't want points. You know, we've seen it time and again now with him. Hockenheim 2019, he was running around in a position which would have promoted him to points after the Alfa Romeos got disqualified. And he went off and Kubica went through. Then we've seen it such as Austria this year. I can't remember which one it was, the Styrian or the first one, where he was doing really well. He qualified in Q2. He was up to 13th on the first lap, and then he went off, and then that was it. He was down at the back. And we've just seen it where he has these impressive performances getting into a qualifying 2 group and getting sometimes as high up as 12th, 13th, and then tumbling down. And then this weekend, it made progress forward anyway, and then the retirements put him further forward. We'd only got 12 cars left. There were only going to be 2 cars not scoring points this weekend, one of which was going to be Grosjean because the damage to that Haas was horrendous. And then the other one, you'd have probably thought Vettel, realistically, because he was doing crap, or Raikkonen. But no, it's Russell, isn't it? So George, as much as I love you, buddy, and I think you're a really good driver and you do deserve Formula 1, you're becoming a bit of a bridesmaid now, aren't you, in the sport where you just don't quite want the points. So for that reason, it's going to be 6 points. You drove a brilliant weekend, and you drove it, and you deserved the points. I was just disappointed. So the disappointment is there in the reflection of the 6 points. Points were possible. Points were just there in one hand, firmly there. You were firmly grasping them, and you just went, not today, thanks. And there we go. 6 points to Russell. And then we come to Romain Grosjean. And what could be said about him? Well, what could be said? Do you want to know what? I thought he had a fantastic race, personally speaking, because he got all caught up and tangled up in that turn 1, turn 2 complex incident where everyone was tripping up over each other. And on board his camera, it was bouncing through that gravel sideways, brushed the tyre wall after already being put in a position to spin, so obviously already had floor damage, then drove it out, then got it back to the pits, had some repairs done, got back out there, then later on in the race he had a wheel rub with Kimi, and it did some more floor damage, and I thought, do you know what, fair play. Fair play. I think he only ended up like, I mean, I know I say only, but I think he ended up like 25 seconds, 30 seconds off the leader after they crossed the line for the finish, which I know it was only like a 9-10 lap sprint or whatever, wasn't it, at the end. But the amount of damage his car had, and you think, well, okay, so 30 seconds over 10 laps, yeah, that seems a lot. That's 3 seconds a lap. That car's normally, what, 1.5, 2 seconds anyway a lap, slower than a Mercedes? So for him, I just thought, I genuinely was impressed by it. Even though I knew we weren't going to get points and the damage was there, and fair play for trying, Grosjean. So for that reason, I'm going to award him 8 points. I think fair play. You avoided that restart as well, that restart collision. You nearly tripped up over that, but you avoided it all. Kept yourself going. And, you know, if it had been a couple more retirements or a wheel bang and 2 cars off into the gravel, would have been a point. So worth going. And, yeah, P12. Fantastic. And yeah, to finish P12, last of the runners, I think it pretty much doesn't show what you were capable of this weekend, because judging by that, you should have been in the points this weekend had it not been for that damage. So, yeah, 8 points I think is fair. Well done, Romain. And then we come to the tumbling list of failures. Now we've got 8 to go out. We've got 1 that retired after the initial restart, red flag, safety car period, that first 9-10 lap incident filled stuff. And that's Lance Stroll. We're going to come to him next. And he was driving a great race, running around in P4. Ricciardo got him in the pit stops by them having an alternate strategy and Ricciardo going for the undercut. And then, yeah, in the race, he was doing well. It was a solid P4. Maybe could have mounted an attack later on for P3 for Ricciardo towards the end. And he had a tyre failure, or could have been a suspension failure. It wasn't his fault, certainly not. It was the left rear that there was some big drama happened there, and left rear tyre failure, and that was it. Sent him off into the wall. Big damage to that car. I don't think that's going to be survivable. I think that's a tub. I think it's everything. The gearbox was split. And then it caught fire. And yeah, an unlucky way, such an unlucky way for Lance to end his race with such massive damage to the car that wasn't his fault. But that is racing. As we always say, it is racing. But that was a shame. Was a shame to see. But for Lance Stroll, I'm going to award him 8 points this weekend. I think he did a fantastic job for the race that we saw of him. And maybe, just maybe, he could have got a podium. But we'll never know, which is why I'm just docking those couple of points off. But apart from that, it was a fantastic race. Not his fault at all why he crashed. And I just hope Racing Point can get that car repaired, or some of it repaired at least, because that at the minute just looks like it's going to come back in a bag of bits, and we might not be using any of that ever again. So yeah, Lance Stroll, 8 points. Come to Esteban Ocon, not caught up in any of the incidents or drama, but had a brake failure, and there was a problem with the rear brakes, and he was out. So he never took the restart on the first time around. So he became a statistic and a casualty. And points would have been possible had he kept going, without a doubt. He'd have probably been around the Leclerc, Raikkonen, Vettel area. Without a doubt, he'd have certainly been 8th onwards. But it was a difficult one to judge for Ocon, because he was being outraced in those early stages by Ricciardo, and once again out-qualified by Ricciardo. And like I was mentioned, had he not had the failures, I think he would have been able to capitalise and get some points. But realistically looking at it, I don't think he'd have done anything too special. Maybe pushing Lando at the very best for P6. But we'll never know, sadly. So I'm just going to award Ocon a middle-of-the-road 5 points. It was not looking to be a fantastic weekend for him anyway. Never had a chance to show what he was capable of doing with the retirements. So yeah. Middle of the road 5, I think, borderline fair, to be honest with you, yeah. So yeah, 5 points to Ocon. And then it's Nicholas Latifi, and again, a casualty of that restart. The restart after the safety car period, where everyone bottled up against each other. Some elected to try and jump the start and try and get a bit of a momentum down the straight, but Bottas wasn't going until that line, so... yeah, I'm not blaming Bottas for the start line incident. It just all got a bit messy in the mid-pack, where some were making gaps and trying to second-guess when the pace was coming, and then when they didn't go, they had to jump on the brakes, and they all tripped up over each other. So Latifi was in that incident, and yeah, 12 drivers received warnings for that, which is crazy. No penalties, but 12 warnings. Yeah, an interesting one for Latifi. Out-qualified by Russell, despite Russell going off on his flying lap, so that was and then in the race, wasn't doing much special, to be honest with you, and he was behind Russell at that time. So I'm going to score Latifi 4 points. I think we've seen better of him, and I think he was going to struggle this weekend. He didn't look to have the pace of Russell at all. So yeah, it'd have been an interesting one to see how that would have played out, but I don't think he'd have got the better of Russell. So yeah, that's why it's 4 points to Latifi. And then we come to Carlos Sainz, and after a blinding start and a really good start, he got it wrong, trying to overtake a Racing Point and spun, collected Sebastian Vettel for good measure and took his front wing off, and then was involved in the safety car restart shunt. And yeah, just unfortunate for him. Again, just a driver that got 2 accidents and involved in 2 incidents in the 2 racing laps that we had up until that point. So yeah, again, a strange one, an unfortunate one. And for Carlos Sainz, I'm going to keep it short and sweet, and that is also going to be 4 points to Carlos Sainz. The main reason being that if he'd have not had that contact with the Racing Point, which was Sainz's fault, it was a racing incident, but it was more Sainz's fault, he wouldn't have been down there to then get involved in that restart shunt. So I'm blaming Sainz for it, unfortunately. Yeah, 4 points to Carlos Sainz for that. And then we come to the Italian stallion once again at another one of his home Grand Prix. It's Antonio Giovinazzi. Just one cornetto, give it to me. Delicious ice cream from Italy. And there you go, that's the song of the day. Stick that in your iTunes charts. So, for Antonio Giovinazzi, I said that it was all a clusterfuck at the restart and, you know, it was all unfortunate, people making gaps and that. But Giovinazzi was the one that caused the initial contact, I'm afraid. Despite him not necessarily being the main cause, he was the one that caused the accident itself. And for that reason, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. And the longest bit of this part was me singing. Because it's just 1 point to Antonio Giovinazzi for that reason. I'm not fully blaming him, which is why I've not gone crazy and getting minus whatever. But unfortunately, he did start the collisions. He might not have started the whole pack clusterfuck, but he started the collisions. So there you go. It's just going to be 1 point to Antonio. And then we come to K-Mag in the Haas. And what a shame, really, for Magnussen. As usual, the typical Haas thing of one gets a good start, one doesn't, and then, yeah, it was a difficult one to judge for K-Mag because he did nothing wrong in the early start before we had the first safety car. Then when it came to the second restart, people are saying it was more his fault, but if you look at it, others are saying Russell created the bigger gap first and went first, and this is why everyone just got warnings, because everyone were being a little bit naughty. But overall for K-Mag, short and sweet, it's going to be a middle of the road 5 points. It was never going to, even if he was in the race, we couldn't have judged him fairly on Grosjean because of the damage Grosjean suffered. So it was never going to be a difficult one to judge all weekend for K-Mag, and for the race itself, it was over before it really began for him, unfortunately. So yeah, 5 points to K-Mag, and middle of the road. We'll see how he gets on next time. And then we come to Max Verstappen. Yet a, what did our David Croft say? It's a DNF for MAX. I was like, why does he have a job? That's the second time I've whinged about him now. Why does he have a job? Anyway, yeah, Max, he had a brilliant start, that's all I can say. Brilliant start alongside Hamilton, then my car went, nope, I'm buggering off. And he fell down the order, and then ultimately his slow pace caused all that gaggle and clusterfuck, and then he got took out. And he got took out as a result of his slow pace anyway, and he wasn't going to make the finish. No way. No way has he got into massive ERS problems and engine power performance issues with software on lap 1, and then he was never going to recover. He was probably gone into the pits and retired anyway. So unfortunately he picked up damage. But yeah, overall, it was a difficult one. It was a difficult one for Max, and this weekend at least I have something to talk about him about, because last weekend I forgot, if you ever watched that one. So yeah, for Max Verstappen, it's going to be just 6 points. I think he did an okay race. The point there he had at the start. I was going to give him middle of the road 5, but just because it looked like he were going to get Hamilton, it would have certainly made things spicy going forward had he not had that breakdown issue. So yeah, there you go, 6 points to Verstappen. Then we come to Pierre Gasly, the first retirement of this list, which means it's the last I'm going to talk about. And we could be heroes just for one day. And your one day was at Monza, it seems, Pierre, because this weekend was certainly one to forget, wasn't it? It was out in Q1 for the first time in God knows how long. Out qualified by Kvyat for the first time in God knows how long. And then in the race, just 3 into 1 wouldn't go, I'm afraid. Involved in that cluster where Verstappen was slowing down. And it just all got a bit congested up, unfortunately. So for Pierre Gasly, although I'm not blaming him for the incident again where he got tangled up, I'm blaming him for being down there in the first place out in Q1, which shouldn't have happened. And yeah, it's going to be 4 points for that reason. 4 points. I'm being a bit sympathetic with that one, I know. But yeah, just 4 points to Pierre Gasly. So there you go, guys. That was the runners and riders of the Mugello Tuscan GP. And of course, let me know your thoughts and feedback down below. Did I score any too high, any too low? The results are on the screen now with the up-to-date table of the Crawl Room. Has that made any changes? Are you familiar with it? Are you going, oh, my favourites at the top? Why is Lewis Hamilton down there? Well, why is Valtteri Bottas even further down the order? As always, a big thanks to Matthew de Souza for doing me the points. Had it not been for these points, then these points would be irrelevant completely. We wouldn't even have a table for him because I've not been keeping score. Matthew has. So without him, this series would be even more pointless than it already is. That takes a lot to be said. So leave in the comments a little thank you for Matthew for doing these points tables. And yeah, thanks a lot for watching, guys. I will see you for the next one. It'll be the team wall next week, won't it? Because we've had 3 in a row. That means we've got a 1 week gap and it's time for a team review. So I'll see you then. Much love!